Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of The Truth. This is Herschel with you today. Appreciate you being with me and inviting me into your home. And I'd like to do another video. We'll talk about blame. Why do we blame others? Why do people blame God? You ever heard that people will use God as the basis for their blame of something going wrong in their lives? Or someone else caused this to happen, or it's their fault, my fault, whoever's fault it is. But Genesis chapter 2 and verse 7, "And the Lord formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." Took dust, formed out a body, breathed into the nostrils the breath of life. Man became a living being. Not a God, but a living being. Now, verse 21 and 22. "And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man." So he took a rib, created woman, and brought her to Adam. As we know, Adam named her Eve. Now, chapter 3, we see the first indications of something going wrong, and the blame game begins. I'm going to be in verse 1. We'll read through verse 13 of Genesis chapter 3. "Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eye, and the tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew they were naked, and they sewed together leaves and made themselves coverings. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God called to Adam and said to him, Where are you? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you that you should not eat? Then the man said, The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And the Lord God said to the woman, What is this you have done? The woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Now, we have choices to make in our daily lives every day, from the time that we're big enough to start determining what's right or wrong. We have choices that we make. Now, God created man and made woman in his image, breathed into them the breath of life. We are his children. All right. We, as adults, we make the decision, do we want to have children of our own, or do we not? We know from past experience, us growing up ourselves, that we make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are harsh, sometimes they're not. But if we decide to have children, we know in advance they're going to make mistakes. So for them to grow up and blame us for their mistakes, we would think was ridiculous. Well, Adam and Eve, Adam blamed God, Eve blamed the serpent because they made mistakes. Why the blame game? Husband will blame his wife. The wife will blame the husband. People will blame the government for their mistakes. Patients will blame the doctors for something that goes wrong. and on it goes. But basically, when it boils down to, you own your own mistakes. They're yours. They're mine. You know, let's not blame God or anyone else for the mistakes we make. You know, if we make a mistake, own it, deal with the consequences, and go forward. That's the only way that we can get through this life in a way that makes sense to anything. God created us, yes. He could have created us in a way that protected us from everything. Here I am, I'm putting you in this garden, you've got to serve me, you've got no other choice about it, but he didn't want that. He wanted us to make the choice to love him and be obedient to him and give us the chance to either do that or not do it. The choice was clear. They chose not to do it. We want to be wise. We want to be like God, to know good and evil, to know what's good and bad. But did they become gods? Did you and I become gods because we know something's wrong, if something's not wrong? No. We're still human. We're still prone to all the ailments that come about because of the fall of man in the garden. Sin entered the world. It started a spiral downfall of everything that God had created. He called it good. Yes, he knew in advance this would happen. Just like you know in advance that there's a great possibility that if you have children, they will make mistakes. They will do something they should not do. And they have to deal with it. They have to own that, just like you had to own it when you made your own mistakes, or while you still make your own mistakes. We're human. We'll make mistakes probably every day of our life almost. If not, hopefully we get better at it, and we don't. But let's not blame others for the mistakes we made. Can others have a hand in it? Lay something out there that we like, that entices us, like the serpent did Eve. Look at that fruit, how beautiful that is. That's going to make you wise if you eat it. Yeah, it made her wise. She knew that it was wrong after she ate it. But it didn't accomplish anything but place hardships upon her and Adam and upon all of God's creation. Think about it. Thank you for viewing. Goodbye.